welcome to the 135th episode of Redeeming the Time. I'm your host, Jacob Wells. This is my dad, my co-host, Keith Wells, and we have another special guest, Brother Gary Jackson. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be back in Cincinnati and see nice green grass. In Atlanta,
oh yeah,
grass is just not the same as it is here, so we're glad to see it.
Oh, it's a different type of grass?
Different type of grass.
It burns up and all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we've had a hot summer. You were here, got to see some of the rain that was. So you went to the race last night?
And we went to Eldora Speedway, the fastest half-mile dirt track in the world, and saw some great racing. We got in about 3:22 this morning, so
Can you believe that?
we had a good evening.
That's why he's wearing glasses instead of contacts. That's
I
funny.
did not know that. Wow.
So I said that on Sunday night. I said you were coming, and I said, and then I looked at Greg. I guess it was Sunday morning. I said, "Are you guys going to the track?" And then at the end of the service, someone said, "You might want to specify which track they're going to." Like they're going to the horse race or something like that. I was like, "Oh yeah," didn't even think about it that way. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So this is really cool for me because with being your son and a pastor's kid, I've gotten to have a closer relationship, obviously, with you as as the
Sure.
current pastor.
Yeah.
So there's that, but then also through your relationship with my dad, I had a closer. I knew you more than a lot of people.
Yeah, sure.
And so this podcast, having the current pastor and the most previous pastor, like this is a big deal, and I didn't really think about it until like 10 minutes ago. Like holy cat, like because it's just we're close, so it's like, oh yeah, I'm talking to Brother Gary and my dad.
Yeah.
But for the Friendship Baptist Church, this is really cool. So thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. And
Yeah, he was 5 years old when you became pastor. So you were his pastor
I did not know
through all of his growing up years.
So very cool. So before we get into questions and all that stuff, have you watched the World Cup at all?
Actually, I did, and I'm not a soccer fan. Both of my boys played soccer, and I went to all their games. And
You at least knew what was going on.
I knew what was going on, and I thought, this is kind of interesting. But my boys and grandchildren love it.
Yeah.
So living in Atlanta, and we had, of course, a lot of matches there. It was a big deal in Atlanta because even the people that couldn't go to the games, I mean, there was tens of thousands of people downtown where they had the celebration going on.
Yeah.
So we did watch it. I enjoyed it. A little disappointed in some of the officiating. But, I thought America's team did good until they had an off game.
Until they didn't, yeah.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun to watch, and it was exciting to see how America got good publicity from the immigrants that had come in for it.
Yeah, we were talking about that. Some of the reels on like Instagram and stuff that people are like, I've been lied to my whole life.
Yes, that's exactly right.
And now the trend is saying Americans they complain about all this stuff about the first world problems.
Yeah.
And Europeans are like, I want to move here. Like this is the greatest thing.
Yeah.
So, like ranch dressing became like the thing, and we watched all these reels of watching people eat biscuits and gravy for the first time.
Oh wow!
They're losing their mind.
Yeah.
Oh, this is awesome. Looks terrible, but it's great.
It's interesting though because where I live in Atlanta, I live in Gwinnett County, and Gwinnett County is the third most international county in the United States.
Oh wow!
So you get used to when we first moved there. I told Sharon it's like going to Disney World. When you go to Disney World,
It's
you hear all
melting
these
pot,
languages.
Yeah.
And on every street, you have multiple languages in Gwinnett County. So it was kind of interesting and to see the international influence. And it really gave you an idea why we have so many immigrants, because America is the greatest place really in the world to live.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Go ahead.
I think the thinking that Europe is better because of all of these different things, and this, I think, to your point, people from Europe are saying that we're the greatest. So, like, obviously, you don't like there's the poorer countries or the third world. It's a better place to live than that. But even for the Europeans coming over, they're even saying that. So, yeah, that is very interesting.
So I've been down there to where you guys live now. The pace of life in Atlanta versus Cincinnati seems to be quite different. Even though they say Southern living's laid back, I don't see that in Atlanta at all.
Atlanta's not Southern living. It's Southern living if you're an SEC football fan.
Okay.
But the pace of business and the pace of life, just because of traffic. In traffic, there's no such thing as defensive driving in Atlanta. It's offensive driving. I mean, it's whoever can get there first, go for it, Yeah. And but it is not anything similar to when we lived in Nashville. I'd say Nashville was Southern living. And when you get into a rural county, that would be true. But metropolitan Atlanta is very urbanized.
Yeah, you always said when we're going down to Florida or something, like, we need to go to the bathroom before we hit Atlanta. Because you have no idea.
Yeah.
You have no idea what's about to happen.
If there's a way to bypass Atlanta, I'm doing it. I just don't enjoy driving through it.
Yeah.
Or we're going to do it at the earliest or latest time of the day.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy any of the other sports down there?
We haven't been to, we've been to a couple Braves game, actually.
Yeah, we went.
We went with you and Leanne to the Braves game. And I'm kind of a Braves fan. They win more than the Reds do, so it's easier.
Much better.
We have a young man now. I think you knew them. They weren't attending here at the time, but the Mason family, they have one of their boys that is a massive Braves fan.
Yeah, they chose different teams.
One likes the Mets, one likes the Braves, and
they've stuck with it. So.
What's strange is our grandson lives in Albany, Georgia. Mark's youngest son, Braxton, is a huge Reds fan.
Well,
and
that's due to Grandpa.
But he actually watches the line score on iPad because you can't watch the game.
Oh, wow.
The whole game, he sits there on his iPad watching.
Yeah.
He's 10 years old now. He knows every Red and all the stats on him. It's crazy.
That is a little crazy. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't mind, we'll ask you some questions. And,
sure.
I've heard parts of your testimony, probably at different times, but if you could just share, how you grew up in your testimony. I mean, you come from a large family. In Baptist circles, it's a large family,
yes.
I would say. And share that with everybody.
Yeah, we were raised in a Northern Catholic community, and everybody thought we were Catholics because Mom and Dad had 8 kids in 12 years, no twins, 5 boys, 3 girls. I have one older sister, and my older sister was the perfect child. I don't ever remember Donna being in trouble.
Yeah.
And she's lived for the Lord her entire life. But we were raised in a Baptist home. Dad was saved in a church, the Nazarene Church, and he and Mom both raised Nazarene.
So was he first generation Christian for your family?
No. All my grandparents were Nazarene. Right. We all came out of that. And when Dad went into the militaries in World War II, his best friend was a Pentecostal young man, and he would pray every night because he thought he had a bad thought during that day, and if he died without confessing that sin, he'd go to hell.
Oh, wow.
And Dad said he was the best Christian he ever knew, but he never had any security about his salvation. So that caused my dad to start studying the doctrine of eternal security. And when he came out of World War II, he came to believe that once we were saved, that God would keep us. And it wasn't based on our obedience. Our obedience affected our fellowship, but not our relationship. So when he came out, he told Mom, we're going to join the Baptist church, which he did. Took Mom a long time to come around to that because she had been raised in that background. But as long as can remember, we were in church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. When I wanted to play midget football, was what we called it back then. I don't know what they call it right now. I guess that's the wrong term right now to use.
That's awesome.
But I really bad wanted to play. And my dad said, because the games were on Sunday afternoon, he said, you will sit in church all Sunday morning thinking about that game. And he would not let me play.
Oh, wow.
So then when I was 12 years old, I was listening to the radio on a Sunday morning in the kitchen, and they had radio Bible class on, and they were preaching a message on hell. And I realized then I really needed to be saved. So I went and told my dad that I needed to get saved. And so Dad took me to the bedroom, and he opened the Bible and went through the Romans Road, verse by verse. And he did that because he wanted me to know that I was doing what the Bible said you had to do to be saved. I just didn't do what Dad told me to do.
Yeah, that's great.
And so he led me to the Lord, and then I went forward that Sunday and was baptized then a few weeks later. So that's how I came to be saved.
So did your church have like a youth group back then, or was there such a thing?
Well, I don't know what year I saved. I think I was saved when I was around 12.
Mm-hmm. I'm the same thing. I was like 8th grade. Yeah, I'm 7th, 8th grade.
Our pastor was Reverend McIntosh, who later went on to teach at Cedarville.
Oh, wow.
And I remember when we went to the class that we had to go to in order to be baptized, he said, one thing we're going to do is we're going to give you a certificate when you're done, so you'll always know when you're baptized. No one in our family knows what happened to that certificate. One of 8 kids, you didn't keep all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I remember what happened and everything about it, but I don't know the date. And so...
so in that church, was there... did you sit with family? Did you have youth group? Did you have what kind of things at that
Well,
point?
I was in elementary school, so we sat together as a family, all in a row, all 8 of us. And then...
Well, you'd notice when your family was not at church.
Then when I got older, I got junior high age, we got permission to sit with our friends if we sat in front of them.
Ah.
And I remember shortly after I got clearance to sit in front of Mom and Dad, we had an evangelist come in, and he's doing a revival. And it was a small one-room church. We had no air conditioning. It was summer, and the windows were open. And some of the screens had holes in them, and flies were coming in. So my buddy and I were catching flies. And the next thing I knew, my dad was sitting right beside me. That's the last time I didn't sit with a family for a long time.
That's funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the old the stare or the yeah. You can hear your dad's voice through everybody else's voice.
I wanted that sermon to be a long sermon because I knew when I got home it was not going to be a good time.
He wasn't just going to sit next to you.
Yeah, it wasn't just a one-time experience there. Oh, that's funny. So when did you feel called into the ministry?
Actually, shortly after that in junior camp, we went to a camp up on Kelly's Island, up on Lake Erie, called Camp Atmos. And I remember that year God speaking to me about the ministry. And I was quite young. And I kind of just put it out of my mind. Didn't really have an interest in it, but I did feel that God was speaking to me about it. And at the time, we had a pastor that was a wonderful, godly man, but he was older. At that time, I wouldn't think he's so old now, but at that time, he looked to me like an older gentleman that never liked any sport or anything like that. And then when he retired we had Sam Canine come,
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Sam Canine, and he had gone through Cedarville on a basketball scholarship. He was actually roommates with David Jeremiah. And he and Jeremiah both played basketball for Cedarville. And so on Monday night, we would play basketball. Now I'm in high school.
Sure.
And he would be out there elbowing with us and doing whatever. And it gave me a vision of a pastor as just a regular person.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then throughout high school, God continued to speak to me. And then I didn't surrender until Sharon and I were engaged. And I told her, I said, right before we engaged, I said, I think God's calling me into the ministry, and you're going to be all right being a pastor's wife. Because I never really felt a call to do anything, but I knew God wanted me to be a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
So that we surrendered, and then a year after we got married, I was an apprentice pipe fitter at the time. We went to Tennessee Temple, and I began my preparation for the ministry.
So the old switcheroo while you're engaged. Hey, your life's going to go in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar, Jacob?
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, Magno did that too. We were already married. She didn't have a choice. She did. You know what I mean.
Isn't it wonderful, though? I know both of your wives, and how God knows ahead of time what you will need as a pastor. And I think what most people misinterpret is the church doesn't need the pastor's wife. The pastor needs his wife.
Yeah.
And then she'll minister however God gifts her and leads her. But
I think both of us can say that the church would be okay as we move on, but they're really going to struggle with both of our wives leaving.
Well, the wonderful thing when we came to friendship is that Miss Billy was exactly that kind of wife for Brother Preston.
Yeah.
She was what he needed to be, and she didn't feel the need to be a leader in the church necessarily. She was obviously a leader in the church, but she knew her first ministry was to Brother Preston, and so it was a beautiful role model for Sharon to follow in her steps.
Yeah. Yep. Leanne would say the same thing about Sharon as well. Yeah. Amen.
So when you first became, I've got a few questions. I've got 4 questions.
Okay.
For you, okay. When you first became a pastor, what did you think ministry would be like, and then how was it different in the reality of ministry? Not just pastoring, but like just ministering to people.
I think my anticipation of it was that sermon preparation would be easier than it was. I very quickly learned that I needed to preach in series because at first I didn't.
Okay.
And then every week I had to think about, Lord, what do you want me to preach on this week? And so the first thing I had to learn is, you need to be in a series so that your thought and your study can be working throughout this week, even for the weeks to come.
Mm-hmm.
So everything you preach this week isn't what I studied for this week. It's what God's been doing in my life. And so that was something that I learned. I've been very fortunate. I would say for 90% of the ministry of the places that I've pastored, my people have not been demanding. I feel like their expectations of me personally were less than what I expected. I had a great fear of they're going to ask me things about the Bible that I don't know. And even today, if you wanted a player for Bible trivia, I wouldn't be your first choice. That's not the way my brain works. But I would say the expectations of ministry were very good, and the Lord has allowed, through all these years of pastoring, while I had some very hard days, like I think every pastor does at some point, they're really dim in my mind. I remember the wonderful things about the pastorate, and occasionally a thought about some of the hard days, but never enough that it makes you have any regrets about what the Lord has allowed you to be part of.
Yeah.
Before he asks you any more serious questions,
Okay.
I want you to share with him and folks that are watching. So you have had more jobs than any human being that I've ever known. When he was younger, getting through college, he would go different jobs as he was just to make money to get through college, and share some of those. But most importantly, I want you to share with Jacob about your job with Dr. Rice.
Oh.
I find that absolutely hilarious. Maybe explain to some folks who he was and all that, because that's not a circle we really run in anymore, but go ahead.
Well, let me say first of all about the number of jobs. Being one of 8 kids, and my dad was an engineer for Ford, so I mean...
and I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah,
it's just you were getting through college.
It was one of 8 kids. Mom didn't work, which most wives did not work then.
Sure.
Of course, you know, you'd have to be a homemaker if you have 8 kids in
Yeah,
12 years. But, you know, back then, and now I'm showing my age in a lot of ways, but it was a real opportunity to find a job. I mean, you had to know somebody at McDonald's to get hired.
Wow. Okay.
And so, you know, I started out when I was, you know, maybe 10 years old mowing neighbors' yards.
Sure.
And then I got my first paper route at 12. And, you know, in northern Ohio, you had snow and bad weather, and, you know, you're passing those papers and collecting every week, 55 cents a week it was. I can remember having the little thing on my belt, you know, and making change for people. But, you know, I started buying my own clothes when I was 12.
Wow. Really?
Yes, because, you know, when you're one of 8, we would go to the store before school started. We'd buy 3 pairs. I'd get 3 pairs of pants, 3 shirts. We'd roll up the pants, and then through the year, you roll them back down as you grow, you know? So, you know, you just went, and when I got my paper route, I thought, you know, I was going to make $10 a week. And I said I could buy a baseball glove every week if I wanted. That's how I equated what it meant to make 10. So I worked all the way through school, and, you know, it opened up a lot of doors for me. So that when I went to college, Sharon and I had just gotten married. She was an X-ray technician, and she did very well. She made more money than I did. And so one semester, she worked full-time and I worked part-time, and I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with my wife supporting me. So she went to part-time, and I got a job full-time in the factory because I had learned to weld as a welder and did a lot of different jobs. But those jobs really were my first opportunity of ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has affected my whole life, that work is more than a paycheck. And I think there's a great need for people to see their workplace as a mission field. And I know Pastor Keith, when you were in the chemical, you know, probably everybody knows you're a chemical engineer. And
not many anymore, but
well, he's a graduate of Purdue, a chemical engineer.
Long time ago.
But, you know, you used that as a mission field when you were working there in the factory.
And those early jobs, I mean, you learned how to talk to people, how to deal with people, and then you learned what their needs were. And
yes,
all
exactly.
those things, yeah.
So that was a great training ground for becoming a pastor. And I do want to say this, and I've told a number of people this. I've never had any man outwork me until your dad. And the highlight of my 20 years here was having, I had a number of great associates. I mean, we were really blessed. We've been blessed here through the years, and you can see where the Lord's using them in other places today. But I never had anybody that would outwork me or anticipate what needs to be done without being directed. And it was like, I'm thinking about something, well, he's already on it, and he's already doing it. And I think working gives you a good appreciation of surrounding yourself with talented people that can do things better than you can do. And so work is a big part, I think, of manhood. And that is a big missing link in America today.
Amen. Yeah. Thank you for those comments. But do share though.
Oh,
go! You got to tell this because this is a funny.
Okay, my first pastorate, I was in Manchester, Tennessee, Temple Baptist Church.
You were already a pastor at the time.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were in college during that
No.
time. Okay.
We were in Manchester, and the Sword of the Lord was a big national paper that a lot of independent Baptists read,
Right.
and John Rice was at that time one of the leading evangelists, you could say.
He started it, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
he started it. He lived in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which was about 30 miles from where I was pastoring. So they were having a big Sword of the Lord conference where they were having all the big name preachers like Jerry Falwell come in. And so they drove up to our church one day, and the guy came in and he said, "What's your off day?" And I told him what my off day was, and he said, "Would you like to make a little money?" Well, I was 3 kids and small church, and I said, "Well, what do you want me to do?" He says, "I just want you to drive around to churches and hand out papers telling them about the conference coming up." So I said, "Okay," and they hired me to do that. And then he said, "You know what?" He kind of liked me, I guess. We interacted. He says, "During this conference, all these pastors are going to be bringing their kids. Would you run the children's program for me?" And he said, "If you do, I'll give you a tape of all the speakers." And they gave me a stipend. It wasn't much, but he said, "Would you do that?" And so I said, "Yes, I will." Well, through that, John R. Rice's wife got to like me.
Okay.
And he was at the end of his ministry, and it was the last year that they let him preach because he started to get confused.
Yeah, sure.
And he'd get some Bible stories, when Moses built the ark or something like that. So
Yeah.
the next year they asked me, they said, "Would you travel with us?" They had about 4 conferences a year. "And would you take care of Dr. Rice?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean take care of him?" And they said, "Well, we want you to drive him everywhere that he goes." And then I would actually sit in the hallway because he might come out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and say, "It's time to go to church." And I'd have to say, "Dr. Rice, it's not time yet, to go to church." So because I was driving him, I'd get to pick up these famous preachers at the airport, drive them to the meetings. I'd get to go to dinner with them, and I was like the little mouse in the corner listening to their conversations. And the funniest thing about it, and I'll just say this, is we went to this restaurant. I pulled up the car. He was elderly, and I helped him get in the car. And Dr. Rice, everything he ever made, he put in the ministry. We pull up to the restaurant. I get Dr. Rice in the car, and one of the large donors, because it wasn't his hometown, it was actually in Atlanta, had loaned him his
story.
Cadillac. Well, Dr. Rice had never probably been in a Cadillac, so this guy was a businessman from Birmingham. I opened the door and I let Dr. Rice in, and all of a sudden he hits the door lock. So I'm going around and I need to get in the car and pull away, and he's got the door locked and I can't get in, and so I go around the car and I try to explain to him that he needs to hit that button. Well, he couldn't hit the door lock button, so he hit the window button. So he puts down the window, and I think, this is my chance. And I reach in my arm to unlock the door, and up goes the window. Now I can't reach the lock button. I can't get the window down. I'm outside the restaurant, and this Cadillac is there, and I've got my arm in looking at people coming by me.
That's hilarious.
That's awesome.
But I will say this, even in his later years, he was a hard preacher, but he was a gentle, kind man outside of the pulpit.
Yeah.
And so
He
it
would
was a
make
good
his
experience.
books available too, right?
He'd come to Tennessee Temple and he'd have a book table of $1 books, $1.50 books, and $2 books, because he wanted students to have them.
Yeah.
So I had all of his books. You might have some of them now, Jacob.
I do.
Yeah. Explain what that means.
So when Brother Gary was retiring, I was interning, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was interning, and he pulled me aside and said, "Hey, do you want my library? And
Yeah.
you can take whatever you want." And I have most of those books in my office right now, and I
Hundreds and
thoroughly-
hundreds of
yeah.
books.
So I really appreciate that.
Mark got first dibs, and then you got second dibs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
So, yeah.
I thought
That's a great story.
I love
I
that
did
story.
not know that story. So, before we talked about the jobs, you were talking about the rough days and how the expectation of you was not what you expected. Not getting into details, but like I've been 2-3 years now?
Uh-huh.
No, whatever. However long I've been on staff. There have been more hard days in the last year than I have ever had in my life. So, how did you minister? How did you continue ministering to others when you personally felt discouraged?
In my hardest days, two things happened. Another pastor that was a little bit older than me, but much longer in his church, was going through a similar time in his church, and both of our wives liked to shop at TJ Maxx, and we ran into each other by chance of the Lord, I'll say, at TJ Maxx, and he just gave me some general advice about staying focused on what God's called you to do and to stay out of the battle. And so number one, that was my big help. My biggest help was that during that time, Mark was dating Lindsay at the time. My son Mark is a pastor, and he was dating a girl that was, they were engaged, and she sang in a trio, one accord trio, and they sang at different local Bible conferences and rallies. So we went over to West Virginia to hear Lindsay sing.
Yep.
And David Gibbs preached a message on Romans 8:28 and 29. And God spoke to me in that message about all things working together for good. And I went forward. And just a side note, there are times that everybody needs to go forward to the altar and pray. And that's one thing that's greatly missing today. People think, I don't need to go to the altar. I can make the decision right here. And you can. But there are times you need to go to the altar. And I went to the altar, and Mark was there, and he came. And Mark put his arm around me, and this is what he said. I can remember it word for word. He said, because I was talking to him about what was going on. He didn't live in town. He was out of town. He was in Boyce College at the time in Louisville. And he said this. He said, Dad, what is God trying to do in your life? I had been focusing on what God was doing in the church. And I was overlooking what God was doing in my life. And so I learned a really important lesson that day, that when you're going through hard times, they are for your good. But notice in Romans 8:28, I put it together, it's personal. It's not what God's doing for the good of a church or a city or a country. God's doing something in your life. So now when I come into hard situations, and we'll continue to go through them through our life, my first question I ask is, God, what are you trying to do in my life? What do I need to learn from this? And so that was really important for me.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So, switching topics. I'm interested, and I think if we have young men that are listening, or anyone that teaches or preaches, what was your and what is your process? Everybody has their own process, but what's your process of preparing for a message? Because everybody's just a little different.
We went to Brother Preston and I went to a seminar on that Jerry Vines, James Merritt, and Junior Hill did. And
Good people
Yeah, that's
to learn
pretty
from.
very good people.
Was that? Did he just come out with his book? Power of the Pulpit?
No, it had been out for several years
Okay,
actually,
all right.
but they just started that. They'd go to Gatlinburg and they'd have a 3-day deal. And so Brother Preston and I went, and Vines and Merritt did on preparation, and Junior Hill did on drawing the net on the invitation, which who
That
could
would
do
be
it better
perfect.
than him?
That
you
would
know?
be perfect.
But what I took away from that, and have kind of adapted, is to first spend time reading the passage. I might end up focusing on one verse, but read the passage and read it over and over throughout, your time of preparation. And then I would try to have by Wednesday an outline in my head that then between Wednesday and Friday I would try to develop. And I would do between Wednesday and Friday more of my commentary, research type on the passage, and I try to let the Lord kind of speak to me Monday through Wednesday on what He was saying to me and what He wanted me to share. And then for the developing of it, I did it towards the end of the week, and
Illustrations and such.
Yes, and I tried to be done by Friday, so I wasn't in that panic on Saturday night that sometimes you find yourself in. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've come to find out too. I feel almost like I'm stealing from my family if I don't have it done by then, because you're just consumed with it.
Yes.
Friday and Saturday. Yeah, Friday night and this
Yeah.
Saturday, because I don't have this done, and this is not ready. I needed to be ready way before this. I'm
Yeah.
aggravated on myself and all that type
Yeah.
of stuff. So you intentionally waited until 2 or 3 days as it's mulling around in your head, and
Yeah, that's what I needed to do, because the sermon
I get
preparation
it.
is a lot like your prayer life, because it doesn't end when you leave your desk. You wake up, and I would keep later on my phone, and if I woke up in the night with a thought, I'd write it down lest I forget about it.
and you would, and you'd be so
Yeah.
aggravated.
Yes.
I had it, I didn't write
Yeah.
it down.
Yeah.
I can't think of it again.
So
Yeah. So I've had the privilege of being part of and witnessing the transition from you being the pastor to you being the pastor, and it's been how long has it been?
about 5 years.
5 years now. So it's how fast the world moves. It's a memory. I have been able to ask people and have been able to hear people's memories of you as the pastor. And through that, I have found a common theme with it, and looking at how you ministered to me, and then also what people have said of the common theme of that and I want you to speak on how important it is of being present with people, because when I ask people, when I hear people talk, you were there. You were in the room. You were there, like what you said, a normal person. You were their pastor, but you were also just present with them, and you talked with them as a normal person. And when I interned, I don't know if you remember this or not, but one of the days of the first week, you said, "Hey, you want to go get a McDonald's Coke?"
Yeah.
I think back on that every time I think of you. It was nothing special. It was you were there with me. You wanted to be there with me, and that is one of the things that people remember. So if you could speak on how important and being present with people is to you and with your life and ministry.
I think what you're referring to is what I would refer to as the difference between a preacher and a pastor. My gift was more pastoring than preaching, and I love to preach, and you're always amazed. God seems to use the messages that you feel you delivered the worst sometimes to do
Yeah.
the best work. But a pastor has a love for his people. And you want to be the people that you love. And if I was on a pulpit committee looking for a man to lead my church, the first thing I'd want to discern is, how did he love the people that he came from? And how he loved the people he came from will be how he loves the people he comes to. And if you want to be a pastor, the one thing you can't be weak in loving people. And if you think about it, what did Jesus say? He said, we demonstrate our faith by how we love others. So, Jacob, I'd just say that because I had genuine love for the people and still do, where I'm at now, I love the people in my Sunday school class. This week, somebody from my Sunday school class in Atlanta stopped and took a picture at the sign here in front of Friendship.
Oh, wow.
They're going to Mackinac Island, and they said, "Where was the church you used to pastor?" And I gave them the address. They didn't come in. I said, "Man, you guys should have gone in." But they stopped, and they took a picture, and they texted it to me. And but I think that's true of anybody in ministry, that if you can't love people, then you're not going to be effective ministering to them. And you want the people that you love, and in your case, when you're an intern, and your father's case, when he was an associate, I had a desire to help them become what God had for them ultimately. And it was very apparent from the beginning of your dad's ministry. Music was his job, but it wasn't necessarily his calling. You could see it was much more widespread than that. And so you don't know what that is, but it's your desire to love them and give them opportunities to develop into what God is calling them to be. Mm-hmm. And that is the greatest joy of pastoring. Mm-hmm. Just like a parent, you want to see your kids do better than you did. And a pastor's the same way. He wants to see his people have better marriages. Yeah. Better witness where they're at in their job, and you desire the best for them. And that's the mark of a pastor.
And to say to go off of what he just said there, he would see some boredom come in, or lack of challenge, and he would intentionally move me into other roles that I didn't know what. I'd never done it before.
Mostly where I had a problem. Well,
I didn't know what. I didn't never done that before, and that type of thing. And he'd give me new opportunities and to allow me to grow. And what I was when he came on staff, and he allowed me to expand that in different areas. So I mean, that only comes when someone sees that in you and allows you to fail sometimes and allows you to grow. So yeah, and I'll be forever grateful for that. We worked great together. He was a big idea guy. I was a detail guy, and that's a good combo.
Yeah.
And I greatly miss that. So with that,
before
go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you that because I've been really interested in seeing the history of the church, like last year or 2 years, whatever.
2 years ago, yeah.
The 75th anniversary.
Yeah.
Every leader has their footprint or their fingerprint on
Yes.
the church.
Uh-huh.
And I'm seeing the fingerprint that you left in the love that you had for those people. And the love that you were just, like you just talked about. Like that's still a firm part of our fabric of Friendship Baptist Church. And I've had the opportunity to hear people's testimony of that.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, we've got young men that are considering going to the ministry. We have a young man that's right now down in Columbia, Josiah Hassinger.
Yes.
He'll be going into the ministry. What are some things that you see them that you would recommend young men do to prepare for the ministry and to serve the Lord?
One thing that Pastor Canine talked to me about before I even went to school was, he said, be sure that school doesn't hinder your love for the Lord. Don't get such a love for ministry and learning that you begin to put your love for the Lord secondary. So I would tell them, you focus on having a love for the Lord. And then the second thing I would tell them is, for a young man, I think if he can work underneath someone that wants to invest in them, that it is a great help. And most men that God uses can point to some people that have invested in them. And sometimes it could be a layman that has invested in you. It doesn't have to necessarily be a staff member or a pastor. But that's what I would, the two things I would tell them to look for.
My final question, it's not as heavy. What passage or book of the Bible do you immediately think of that shaped who you are or your ministry the most? I'll give you mine. So I'll give you a second to think about it. Mine, David always resonated with me. Being young, 1 Samuel 16. I've never studied a chapter more than that chapter, and it's the call to. It was when he was anointed, and so that's the first. There's other ones, but that's the one that, and you can answer this too. That's the one that I always go to, and I don't know if I assume you have one, and I assume
mine's changed over time, but yeah.
So what is that passage or book or?
Well, the book that I would refer to the most would be 1 John. 1 John is a book about fellowship with the Lord. Mm-hmm. It starts out, and then it goes into loving others.
Yeah.
And then it ends with, the confidence that the Lord loves you, and He's called you to do a job, and because of that, I would say I resonate most as a Bible character with Peter. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of the shortcomings that Peter had, and I'm grateful that God uses ordinary people that make mistakes.
What is yours?
When I was your age, it would have been the last 15 chapters of Genesis with Joseph. I don't know.
Yeah.
The details of that and all. and then mine shifted to the life of David. I don't know, it was because I was 30 when I started into ministry, and I saw the development time that sometimes we need more years to develop before God starts to use us in a very specific way. So that's the ones that resonated with me.
Yeah.
Very
Well,
good.
thank you so much for doing this, coming on. I really appreciate it. And I was talking to Scott Faust, actually, like these conversations with the podcast. I mean, this is episode 135, which means for me, I have 135 questions or 135 conversations that I've had with my dad, and like that's always going to be there. And so this conversation that we just had will always be on the internet, and I will cherish it forever.
So we typically end with a dad joke. These are, I don't know how this started.
I have people,
but now
every
we have
week.
every week people give him. Fortunately, they don't always give them to me. They give them to him. They're always corny, and so
Yeah, they're always bad.
you got one. Oh, you closed your laptop. Didn't have it ready.
When is a door not a door? When it's ajar.
That's it.
Man.
All right. Well, thank you, sir, for
Thank
being
you.
with us. And,
Enjoyed being in this special place.
we're looking forward to tomorrow,
Yeah.
and you preaching both services. Well, this will be a week after that, but you can go back on the church website and see those sermons as well if you weren't here. So, hope you have a great week. We love you guys, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.